now.
Hello and welcome to the News 9 Plus show. There have been a series of missile tests in 2024. There's been a long-range land attack cruise missile test. There's been a guided Pinaka test, which is Pinaka being the indigenously designed, developed rocket system that was tested recently. And of course, there has been a series of launches and commissionings of India's nuclear submarine fleet. But the most important missile test we've been tracking very recently is the historic launch of India's first ever hypersonic long-range missile that was tested by the DRDO recently. To make sense of all of these missile tests and what they mean for India's strategic capabilities and, of course, defense capabilities, I'm joined by Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar, former Director General Artillery, India's foremost expert on artillery, rockets, and missile systems. General Shankar, welcome to the News 9 Plus show.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for having called me over on the show. Like you just
What an
saying,
interesting series of launches, General Shankar. We were just trying to make sense of so many tests as we were speaking just before the show. Hypersonic missile tests, where did that come from?
At the outset, thanks for calling me on your show once again. I think it's a great day that we've been able to fire a hypersonic missile with a glide vehicle. We'll see it as we go along. This was in the works for the past 3 to 4 years. It was not new. But like you rightly said, along with the hypersonic, we've also fired the guided Pinaka. That's, we all know, even the French are interested in it.
Yes.
Earlier in the year, we fired the Nirbhay, which is the land attack cruise missile, subsonic, over 1,000 kilometers of range. And the fourth angle of this quadrilateral is the Agni 5 with the multiple re-entry warheads. We've done that. Plus, of course, we've commissioned the Arigat and a lot of things. I think it does a lot for our overall defense posture and capability. Please
Right,
clear.
absolutely. So, General Shankar, as you mentioned, it's a landmark year for India's missile capabilities. Very interesting. The series of missile tests and, of course, the strategic platforms, the launch of those strategic platforms, a lot of it has been, in the pipeline for several years. This nuclear submarine program is decades old, and it seems to have accelerated off late. But this coming together of all of these systems, they're all being demonstrated, tested successfully in 2024. First, I want you to give our viewers the bigger picture of the significance of all of these tests, the macro picture in 2024. Does this represent any shift in the way we approach missiles as a form of, as a force in India's defense arsenal? Like we've been hearing talk of a rocket force for India, something that we've never discussed in the past openly. But in the last 2 years or 3 years, there's been talk of a new rocket force for India. Make sense of these tests and the larger capability matrix that's being evolved in India, General Shankar.
Yeah. First and foremost, if you see the Russia-Ukraine war, you see the Israel-Iran war, a lot of missile exchanges.
Yes.
A lot of non-contact warfare, a lot of long-range engagement. And that's the trend line we're talking about. Even China, very recently, it carried out the ICBM test.
Yes.
Korea continues to carry out its, testing, North Korea. Right?
Right.
A lot of testing and signaling and messaging to show off capabilities. So in that context, these four capabilities, multiple re-entry vehicle, which is completely strategic in nature, a hypersonic, completely strategic in nature, a land attack cruise missile, something like a Tomahawk, terrain hugging capability, operational and strategic combined. Then you're looking at a Pinaka extended range, guided, capable in mountains, gives you tactical and operational capability. So across the tactical, operational, and strategic spectrum, there is a huge step up in capability this year, right? And in the context of what you see in other conflicts going, everyone now realizes that we have the strength. It actually puts us at, I wouldn't say parity with China, but it puts us at some kind of a capability with China with which you can handle the LAC and the Indian Ocean well. For
Right.
example, you don't need a 20,000 kilometer missile or a 14,000 kilometer missile which China has. You have to be effective on the LAC, you have to be effective on parts of China, and you have to be effective on in the Indian Ocean. That capability you have. You have the triad with the nuclear sub,
Yes.
right? And earlier this year or a year back, within the last 1 year, we've also fired a BrahMos from a Sukhoi airline launched capability. Plus the BrahMos now BrahMos is also being exported. So I think that's a great capability. It puts India in a different zone altogether. Add to
So,
this, 1 minute. Add to this the fact that we've exported BrahMos, we've exported Akash, and now people are talking of buying Pinaka. So you are getting to get some recognition of being a very stable missile stroke rocket producer in the globe, right? And this will only go further up and up.
right. So that's a very interesting range of capabilities you've outlined, General Shankar. Starting from the tactical to the operational and finally to the strategic. There's a whole spectrum of missiles that and capabilities that are being displayed. But break down for our viewers whether the current conflicts that you mentioned in the world, that's the Russia-Ukraine war, where artillery once again. Hello, where, when did we forget that we had a very capable artillery regiment? And did the Russia-Ukraine war have a bearing on the way we are approaching our long-range engagement capability that you mentioned? And of course, the Israel-Iran war, not to forget, a missile exchange between two countries that literally don't have a border. They're separated by over 1,000 kilometers. And they've been shooting missiles at each other. So, to what extent do all of these wars, how have they influenced the way our decision makers are thinking with the kind of capabilities that you've just outlined?
Look, I'll go back in history. I was associated with the first ever missile launch indigenously in India. I was part of the Prithvi team way back in
Yes.
'88. I was there for the second launch of Prithvi, and the first launch of Agni I coordinated when I
Right,
was in
right.
DRDL with Dr. Abdul Kalam and Dr. Saraswat.
Yes.
I was just a major. I've seen the growth of our missile systems from then to now.
Right.
This, first and foremost, we've had a plan from then, and we've
Yes.
unfolded it. It's not as if this has come out of the blue like a rabbit out of the hat. We've developed this capability, and this is indigenous capability. It is not. It is nothing to do with anyone. That's the
Yes.
first part. And this is hardcore technology of your own, which is great. We've always been, and for example, the Pinaka, we've been developing right from the turn of the century, right? Pinaka and Prithvi, we started developing together. So we've always had a vision for having a strong set of rockets in our armory.
Right. So the IGMDP is something that started this.
IGMDP, yeah, IGMDP was in '88, right? That
Yes.
had Prithvi,
Early
Agni,
80s. That's right.
Akash,
Yes.
Trishul, and Nag.
Right.
Even Nag has come through, right? So we have this capabilities. We've developed the capabilities, whether it's in precision, whether it is in propulsion, whether it's in
Yeah.
airframes. That technology we're very clear. What has happened with the result of these wars is that
Yeah.
suddenly we have realized, and there is a realization with everyone,
Yeah.
That look, rockets are the arm of the future, right?
Yes.
Especially when you're going to do non-contact warfare, non-contact
Yes.
deterrence. Whether you want to do deterrence of denial, deterrence of punishment, that's a different
Right.
story. But you need long-range vectors. So that capability we have now focusing, and we're getting them
Yes.
into numbers, and that should trigger the fact that look, we do need a rocket force eventually. At this point of
Yes.
time, we don't have the numbers, we
Hmm.
don't have the then a complementary reconnaissance and surveillance capability
Right.
to weld it into a rocket force. Plus, if you weld
Yes.
it into a rocket force, you need to have an aim as to where you want to use it,
Right.
right? And generally these rocket forces become political forces, like they are in China.
Yeah.
uh, Others really don't have a rocket force the way China has. But if you look at it, north korea north korea
Yes.
uses its rockets very politically. Iran has proliferated rockets across the spectrum
Yes.
through even non-state actors. For the non-state
Yes.
actors, this is a tool of power.
Right.
For
Absolutely.
It's a tool of power. They sustain themselves on this. For Iran, which fights from the shadows, it is
Yes.
their ability to extend their power, and
Right.
in the absence of an air force, and a
Right.
good rocket force makes good for the fact that you might not have a good air force.
In all of Iran's ballistic missile and drone prowess is all because they didn't have really an air force, right? So they've kind of compensated or overcompensated for the lack of an air force, which they've not had platforms in decades, with a very effective rocket force and a drone force. In fact, they are exporting drones to the Russian Federation. Russia has been using their drones, the Geran
Yeah.
drones, in large numbers. So, my question to you again in the Indian context is, we have a lot of loopholes, gaps in our national security. There are some, the fact that we don't have, say, a certain capability. Our air force is a little deficient in numbers, in frontline aircraft. The squadron numbers are depleting at an alarming rate. To what extent do you believe that these missile advances that we've achieved in the last few years, to what extent can they offset our vulnerabilities in other areas? For instance, like you said, Air Force is one area. Can we do what the Iranians did with the Air Force? The fact that we don't have nuclear powered attack submarines for the Navy, right? Which means you have the ability to interdict the enemy at choke points. Can naval missiles like the one that we just tested, the hypersonic missile, can that be used to offset this particular naval vulnerability that you have? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah. These missiles, you can use them the way you want. I mean, prime example, Iran doesn't have an air force, it doesn't have a navy, but it still
Right.
projects power through its long range missile systems. So can you.
Yes.
I mean, for one moment, forget the fact that you have a fantastic navy and air force. We have. Let's not have
Yes.
doubts about it. Just forget about it for 1 minute,
Right.
for argument's sake. You can. You deploy them in Andaman Nicobar. You deploy them in other places in the Arabian Sea. You deploy them in Himalayas, and you cover. You gone 5,000 kilometers all around you. You got a shield, kind, and you
Yes.
can cover the choke points also. Now you add the air capability.
Yes.
Like I said, we've already launched a BrahMos from an aircraft, right?
Yes.
And we've done that from a ship also. Plus, all these, you launched a nuclear sub, which gives you a triad capability. So you can choke the choke points, or get
Right.
out of the choke points and go from somewhere. So it gives you
Yes.
tremendous capability. One.
Right.
Number two, wherever you have certain shortages in pure air power, the way aircraft
Yes.
at this point of time, missiles will make good,
Right.
right? I mean, you have to understand what the PLA is doing to understand this aspect. PLA in Tibet can't operate too many aircraft because of
Right.
height
Right.
limitations and
Right.
limited number of airfields, no matter what they do. Okay.
Yes.
What are they doing? They're getting rockets in. And we've
Right.
discussed this 2-3 years back. They're offsetting their air force incapability or vulnerability with missiles.
Right.
And they're force multiplying it with reconnaissance, satellite imagery, and
Right.
drones, and all that, and good communication. So you have to put that packet in ISR packet. You
Yes.
add that ISR packet, weld all these together, you're in a different zone altogether. But with the kind of Navy we have and the Air Force we have, I think it's a fantastic capability.
Right. Of course.
All
So
round.
now, yes, a
Yeah.
fantastic capability, General Shankar, as you outlined. I was recalling a conversation I had with the then DRDO chief, Dr. Satish Reddy, a few years back. Around the time we spoke first about this, he said that, what we've really done in the DRDO the last couple of years is that we've put all the building blocks in place for all of these capabilities. And he says, today we are completely self-sufficient when it comes to missiles. And whatever type of missile that you want, we can design it for you. I mean, that's the kind of confidence that he had. And I think the hypersonic missile test proves the fact that the DRDO has really got somewhere now with our missiles. They're serious missile designers now. But, the point again, General Shankar, is that all of this is, the DRDO does the R&D, they do the concepts, the prototyping and all of that. What about the industrial production of these missiles? How quickly can you scale up production of these hypersonic missiles or these ballistic missiles to an extent that you can actually wield power the way the Iranians have? I mean, not to copy anything else that they're doing with the non-state actors. Of course, Iran is in the doghouse for a variety of reasons. But if we can borrow what you just mentioned, the fact that we could use that to offset our vulnerabilities in certain areas, but for that you need numbers, right? Tens and 20s missiles wouldn't do the trick. You obviously need them in hundreds and thousands. How can you get the numbers going, General Shankar?
See, numbers is first a factor of capability development with the industry.
Yes,
right? And
absolutely.
second, that you have to put out your necessity and put
Yes,
money on the table. That's the first part. You want
right,
I'm sure the industry will come up to it. I'll explain that. First,
right,
the government and the services have to be very clear that we have to have increased numbers, and they have to put money on the table. That's the first thing. The second part
right.
is, we have spoken about industry. We have models. For Pinaka, we've had L&T and Tatas as production partners for the past 25 years. So, and now that they're even exporting, they'll come up
Yes,
to it.
right,
For strategic systems, long range systems, also, we have
right,
developed partners. Though, of course,
right.
being strategic systems, we've largely kept them within the PSUs like BDL and all that.
Yeah,
Which is a good model to go. We can expand BDL capacities. We can augment
yeah,
BDL capacities through those industry which are already associated with other systems.
right,
After all, you also in the process of expanding your capability through Akash export, BrahMos
right,
export.
right.
So BrahMos has got a dedicated production line of its own.
Yes,
So I think we have the capability to expand. This capability is not a problem. It is the intent and the numbers. The government has to decide and say, okay, go ahead, and this is the timeline. And I'm very sure the industry will meet the targets.
right. And for that, industry is absolutely the critical factor. Without the industry, you can't deliver the numbers that you need.
Yeah. We look, the good part is the industry is now completely with all these developments. You don't have to create an industry. You don't have to, rewind the clock. Nothing. It's there.
Right,
That industry has grown. Okay. Now that the industry is there, everything is there. It's just putting in the numbers, and you also have to see how fast you can put it. Now your
right.
procedures in the army, navy, and
Yes,
the air force, or the SFC, whichever way this thing, or governmental procedures, if they are fine tuned, then you can put everything on table very quickly.
right,
Ultimately, like I said, it's up to the government. The government has to play ball, and the services
right,
have to play ball with each other. So that brings
right.
me to the fact that jointness, theaterization, there's a connect. People don't
Yes,
understand. It's easy to have a hypersonic, but how to
yeah,
employ it, everything, you need jointness and theaterization.
Absolutely, jointness and theaterization. In fact, my next question, Jan Shankar, is that when you're talking this jointness, theaterization, back to the question of the rocket forces that we've been talking of. You've been hearing about it for a number of years, but now it seems to have, faded away in the popular discourse. Is there any real? Are there any real steps being taken towards this rocket force, and how will it really help to build the case for the numbers that if you have a separate rocket forces command, which I would imagine would be directly under the CDS, and it would have elements of all three services, uh, does that speed up the rocket arsenal, deploying the numbers that we need? And what are the kind of templates that you would look at globally for this kind of a force?
Look, a rocket force is a structure,
Yeah.
right? At this point of time, I'm not too focused on it, to be very honest. You can put that structure in place. At this point of time, we need hardware.
Yes.
You need hardware for rockets, you need hardware for production, you need hardware for ranges, everything. And you need hardware for the, intelligence, reconnaissance, and, that surveillance.
Well,
ISR.
yes.
Put that in place first. Develop that capability. If you don't have the capability and have a structure, it's not good. The structure can come, but first and foremost, you need to theaterize and go joint. Unless
Right.
you don't have a joint doctrine, unless you are not theaterized, making a rocket force will be a misfit.
Right.
Then you don't know what to do with it. Please remember, this
Yes.
rocket force is not going to be strategic in nature completely. It has to be
Right.
operational and tactical.
Yes.
Okay, if it is operational and tactical, we should be very clear who will own it, where it will be deployed, how will you fight with it, how you going to
Yes.
do what you want to do, right? Whether you want to, so the theater commanders come in. You need to
Yes.
give certain allocation to the theater command for him to fight a battle
Right.
or fight his operations. So for that you need numbers. So at this point of time, we just have some tests being done. We have not got a structure. You don't even have regiments put on ground.
Mm.
So it will be premature to, at this point, to think of rocket force. But having said that, it's time we started thinking and talking like we are.
Right.
You need to go through the mental hoops to say, okay, I need this, and this is the way I need it. This is the way I'll employ it. So the
Yes.
thinking will take time because this is a new animal you're going to deal with.
Absolutely. And you already have an old animal, Jan Shankar. You have the Strategic Forces Command, which
Command.
employs the strategic rockets. So,
Yeah.
how would you distinguish this new rocket force that is going to operate, primarily on the tactical and operational levels? Given
Yeah.
the fact that you are in a nuclearized environment, both your potential adversaries have nuclear weapons. How do you signal to them when you're employing your strategic rocket forces and when you're moving your tactical rockets? I mean, how is that distinction going to play
Yeah.
out?
I think it's a very good question. That's a
Yeah.
dilemma. It's a political
Yes.
dilemma which the political authority has to tackle. See, again, take the case of China.
Yeah.
China has its operational rockets or the non-strategic rockets and the nuclear warheads and the strategic missiles in the same mix as part of PLARF.
Yes.
They're not separate. Okay, only the tactical rockets are with the cores, or but the strategic rockets, whether they are nuclear or otherwise, are with the PLARF.
Yeah.
So what do? They signal political ambiguity or nuclear ambiguity.
Right.
Okay, so that's a political direction. That's their political choice, how they are playing this game. Which means they have a nuclear doctrine, which is not there for the world to see. That they have their own nuclear
Right.
doctrine and their nuclear thought process, or a strategic thought process. Let me put it, not call it nuclear. Let me call it strategic thought process. Do we have one? Unless you have one, uh, you can't make, whether you want to have one rocket force or two rocket forces, one strategic, one non-strategic, or a mix. We'll have, or none, just the strategic force and the rest. You have three choices, in this, like I've outlined. So it's a matter of a political decision. And for that, you need to have a very clear nuclear doctrine.
Hmm.
So it's again goes with that no first use, political ambiguity, what do you want to
Yes.
do second, right? Launch on demand. All these capabilities now will come. The moment you have hypersonic, the
Yes.
game changes. So
Right.
how you want to handle all this comes from that. And plus, in which case, if you have to have a nuclear doctrine and XYZ,
Right.
then you need to have a national security.
Talking specifically of the platforms, the capabilities we have tested. Yeah, let's start with the hypersonic missile that was just tested late Saturday night. Why is this such a game changer for us? This new capability of a very long range hypersonic missile, which is the anti-ship version from what we are understanding. But tell us why this is such a game changer for the Indian military.
Okay, can I explain it with a bit of a graphic, if you don't
Yes,
mind?
of course.
Yeah. So okay, I'll have a look at this. This gives you the glide principle. Now, if you see here, one, yeah, if you see here, right, see the pointer, a missile is launched from here, a
Yes.
hypersonic missile. This is now, say, for example, the one which was launched today is it's got 9 Mach, and it takes off, goes here, and here it separates, right? What happens is this is the basic missile is just a launcher. From there, a glide vehicle separates, and that glide vehicle takes a different trajectory altogether. It glides down, right? It glides down. What does this glide vehicle do? The glide vehicle is aerodynamic. It's like an aircraft almost. Okay,
Right.
and it is aerodynamically designed and it glides. So it till here the missile is powered. Hereafter it is not powered. It is just coasting down because of the less air density at the higher levels. It maintains its speed. Since it has gone to that level and it is released at almost 10 Mach, it has the capability, or 9 Mach, it has the capability to retain its speed. And then it comes down. At the final stages, it's like a normal warhead and hits the target. In between,
Right.
if there's any guidance, it is normally done by a satellite, right? And that's the way the glide principle works. Now, the
Right.
whole thing is that you're maintaining the speed. If you're in a normal ballistic missile, if you fire,
Yeah.
after the first boost phase, or the powered phase, thereafter the missile is just free. It's a free flying object.
Free
So
flying.
air
Yes.
density, yeah, the speed starts retarding. If the speed starts retarding, the time to the target is less. Here you're maintaining time, high speed. So the time to the target is less. The ability of the enemy to intercept this is also less. His reaction capability is reduced because it's coming at such a high speed. His air defenses are not up to the mark to handle you. That is why there is a lot of emphasis on a hypersonic glide vehicle and all that. Now, these come in two forms. Let me also put it across to you. Uh, you know, uh, a hypersonic missile can be in the form of a hypersonic glide vehicle or a hypersonic cruise missile also. I'll
Right.
just show you a picture of that. I mean, I'll give you an idea of this through another. Yeah, have a look at this, right? You see, this is a normal ballistic trajectory which goes out into atmosphere and then gets back. This is like a normal ballistic missile. As against this, you have the cruise missile, which is a hypersonic glide vehicle, a hypersonic missile with a glide vehicle. It goes, like I said, it releases the glide vehicle and it glides on to the target the way it wants, right? The way you program it and you control it from the satellite. Otherwise, you can fire it in the form of a cruise missile. The cruise missile can go much lower, like any other missile, like the BrahMos, right? And the BrahMos is a good example, if I may say, because the BrahMos is traveling at about 3 plus Mach, and it's
Yes.
cruising. It's going at which as per waypoint. So you can have it at hypersonic speed also. In which case, detection is almost out. Interception is almost difficult because you can't detect it, you can't intercept it. So you can have a glide vehicle, hypersonic glide vehicle, or a cruise missile. What we fired very clearly is a glide vehicle,
Right.
right? What the Chinese DF-17 is also a glide vehicle. Let me show you a picture of the DF-17, and then you'll understand the practicality of what I'm saying. Uh, yeah, here's the picture. You see this? This is the DF-17. You see the picture in the front. This is the glide vehicle where this pointer is now I'm showing. Okay. Now, as against this, have a look at what we fired today. This is the picture of what we fired today. You see in the front, this is also a glide vehicle. So it's very clearly today what we fired is similar to the DF-17. The DF-17 has a range of about 2,500. As we've said, we have a range of 1,500, which is fine. For our requirement, I think it's quite a good one. And for the first time, I think it's damn good. So you have a glide vehicle capability. And you have this, and you have a near supersonic or a near hypersonic missile in BrahMos. And if you can do something to that and get it into hypersonic range, you are there already. And BrahMos, incidentally, is the fastest cruise missile today in the world. There's no other cruise missile which is faster than this. Right? You're almost there. You're almost on the leading edge of this envelope.
Use this hypersonic missile. Would you use it to interdict targets like warships, for instance, at sea? Take out. What are the potential, use case for this?
Yeah, I'll quote, Mr. Hexworth, who's going to be the Defense Secretary of USA. What did he say? There's a video which is going viral. He says, you are developing aircraft carriers, this, that, and all that. And China launches, hypersonic missiles, against which you don't have much defense. In the first 1 hour, 2 hours, or 10 hours, or 2 days of the conflict, your aircraft carriers are down, and where are we? So I'll put that back. If you have this capability, you can think like that, right? But having said that, let me not think so much into the extreme, because that I think is too much. It might not happen that way, right? There are methods how to get out of it, and there are ECM methods and all that. We'll not get into that. That will become complicated. But it gives you a capability. It gives you the capability of, say, put one of these systems in Andaman Nicobar somewhere.
Yes.
You can just choke off the Malacca Strait. Similarly, you put one in Lakshadweep somewhere. You can control all the channels up and down. Okay, and so you have capable, or you put it on a carrier, or put it on a ship, and take it somewhere, right, wherever. That area, 1,500 kilometers around, you can control, which is a big capability. Look, we've got one factor which aids our missile systems. We have geography on our side. China doesn't have geography.
Right.
China just doesn't have the geography.
Right.
He needs that extra range, everything. You don't need it. Nature has given that to you on a platter. So we'll use it. Let's put it this way, we'll use it.
Interesting. Right. So A2AD would be greatly enhanced. The Indian A2AD capabilities.
Yeah, your ability to penetrate the enemy's A2AD. Your ability to penetrate the enemy's A2AD is greatly enhanced. Even against fixed targets in, say, the plateau, you have great capability now, because there are also choke points on the inlets. I can show you a picture. Let me show you. Okay, let me show you this where we can use it in the mountains also.
Right.
Look at this map. Okay. If you have a look at this map, all the red lines, are the ingresses into Tibet, right? And this is an animated slide, so I'll go back and I'll show you again. It's interesting. See, this is the road from Gormo to Lhasa. This is the Western Express Highway across Tibet or across the Ladakh in front of Nepal. This is the eastern one, which is coming in from, Sichuan and Yunnan and Chengdu. And these are the other laterals which are there. So main one are the first three which I showed, these three, rather. Sorry, these three. Now, if you can choke these three, now you control these three, China will be in a bit of a fix in Tibet if they have to ever prosecute operations there. I don't
Right.
visualize that thing, but if so, it gives you great control.
Yes.
For that matter, even the Pinaka gives you great control because
Yes.
these roads are just about 120, 130 kilometers away. Pinaka, you do some, I mean, there are methods. I'll not talk of it here. You can control these roads. You have BrahMos, you have Smerch. You see, you have Pinaka, which is equivalent to HIMARS. Then you have
Yes.
Smerch. Then you have BrahMos. Then you will have these which are coming up. So you have a plethora of systems you can handle.
So you have a layered A2AD capability that you're talking of from the lowest, Pinaka being the lowest, and hypersonic being at the very edge of it. And this is like a bubble that can be deployed around our areas of interest.
I wouldn't say bubble. You don't have to be static. Let's say you have this capability and deploy it the way you want.
Right. So that's a very significant thing, jump in our capability. I think we tend to think very tactically in terms of, boots on the ground, that formations moving and all that, which is well and good. But with these capabilities that you've outlined, that kind of takes our offensive capabilities a little more without, say, having to deploy several strike corps. You can achieve those effects with missiles.
See, I completely agree with you. We have to look at how war will happen. What is your experience from Kargil to now? At one end of the spectrum, you have Kargil where we fired buffers and all that grad. You did something, but what are the ranges of engagement? 10, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers at best. At the other end of the spectrum is what we did in Eastern Ladakh. We fought the Chinese with knives and caveman type tools. Okay.
Literal hand-to-hand combat, melee weapons. Yes.
Yeah, physical. Yeah, caveman kind of I call it a caveman fight. Okay. Now, look, this is something serious I'm going to talk now. India is a nuclear power. Pakistan is a nuclear power. China is a nuclear power. Everyone says this is a nuclear triangle, which is at short fuse. Yet, we've had a conflict with two nuclear powers. We've controlled escalation. You also had a spat, Air Force kind of a spat in Balakot.
Yes.
And then
5 years ago.
5 years back. Yes. Okay, where you actually look. I think the most important thing about Balakot strike, it's at Jabatop, not Balakot. What we did was we struck in Pakistan. Whether you hit a few militants or not is irrelevant to me. You struck across the international border in Pakistan.
Yeah, on mainland Pakistan.
No, mainland Pakistan with your Air Force. So that is another maximum, your entire spectrum of operations is here. Within 2 days, everything got, what shall I say? Peace came back in all these cases. Even now, you see, now the LSE is going back. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if you look at this spectrum of operations and the outer capability which you have developed, when I say outer capability, the higher capabilities through layered missile capabilities and, the Air Force is very strong. You have a strong Navy. Okay. I mean, China might have the biggest Navy, but it doesn't leave the South China Sea. Your Navy might be smaller, but it operates right from the Gulf of Eden to the Malacca Straits with impunity. Right? Yes. So you have this thing. So your level of deterrence is very high. Why would a Chinaman come and try and attack you? To get a bloody nose. And 6,000 kilometers away from his mainland bases.
Yes.
So this brings down the spectrum of violence and the threshold of conflict. So which forces a certain amount of peace to come in. It might be uneasy peace.
The environment. Very important observation. So it actually contributes to stability. And that either side doesn't believe they have an advantage that they can impose on the other.
I think it's a very important point, and the word is stability. It gives you,
Right.
puts you into the stability paradigm in terms of deterrence. I think that's a fine word which you used.
Right. So these
Yeah.
are actually weapons of, yeah, interesting that we, because the way these missiles are, we think of them as, instruments of offense and, strategic weapons. But this thing of, them being stabilizing weapons is an interesting, concept that you put out. The fact that they actually contribute to stabilizing the environment rather than, vitiating it or triggering off, potential,
Nuclear catastrophes.
yeah, well, nuclear adventurism or military adventurism. But uh, while China, Jan Shankar, is more or less on a course of confronting the United States, a lot of its capabilities, like the DF-17 that you mentioned, and of course the DF-21, the carrier killer missiles, are meant to deter the United States. But you have in our neighborhood of the West, Pakistan, whose missile arsenal is almost entirely focused on India. What do you think GHQ Rawalpindi will be thinking right now with the raft of capabilities, Indian missile capabilities that have been developed? Would there be a response from there? Would they seek parity, this eternal, search that they've been in, parity with India, strategic parity with India? How will they start thinking now?
See, the moment you start talking of missiles, I'll come to Pakistan a little later. I think China and Pakistan both will be very aware of what we have done.
Right.
Both will be thinking, you know, far in excess of what we are thinking. Because with China, I wouldn't say parity in capability, parity in numbers, I'm not looking, but in terms of capability, I think you've gone one level higher. Why I've
Right.
told you, because of your capability to deploy an IOR and your freedom of action and all that. Now, look at Pakistan. I mean, all of us think that Pakistan is completely turned towards us and all that. But Pakistan has three problems. I view it differently. Pakistan has a nuclear neighbor with fast-growing arsenal, ever-growing capability in India. Like we think China is trying to match USA, Pakistan thinks India is trying to match China. So whatever it does to match China is against Pakistan. That's the way Pakistan will think. Pakistan also has a neighbor in Iran, which has a tremendous rocket and missile capability. After all, their power is only this.
Yes.
And third, they are always worried that Israel might strike them.
Right. Okay.
Don't forget that. Look, if you're a Pakistani, I'll think so. If I'm a Pakistani, I'll think so. Who lit me? It is these three people. Or of course,
Right.
USA. Against USA, they have no defense. So
Yes.
they will they will do whatever it takes to build whatever they want. Or they'll come and beg, borrow, steal from China and come and deploy it.
But so
Let's
you're
be
saying
very
that
clear.
their the process isn't rational. But the Israel thing is, are you going back to when Israel tried to take out Kahuta in the early 80s? There was a plan with India,
Yeah.
which we didn't buy in on that plan, and
We didn't
hence it
buy,
was,
but the fact,
yes,
yeah, you're right. We didn't buy in, but if you're a Pakistani, you'll think so.
right,
That's part of your thinking. I mean, you can't rule that out, no? So you want to develop that capability, and Pakistani generals, they will want to build that capability, because then they have that capability, and that capability becomes a political tool for them to continue in power.
right,
The threat
right,
is there for them to be in power. It's not for anything else. If you have to be powerful, you have to have some political tool in your hand, and that political tool is the threat from all this. All this is the way I think they will think, right?
right. So this
So
is
it's an interesting thing. Your views. I'd like your views on this.
right. On how the Pakistanis are going to react to that.
Yeah,
But I say, Jan Shankar, what I think personally is that for Pakistan, missiles are not so much a tactical weapon as much as it is a strategic weapon for them.
yeah,
I think it is for them, it was the two things, two developments in the 80s, which actually completely transformed Pakistan's strategic thought, was the fact that they first got the nuclear weapons, and somewhere in 83, 84, almost 40 years back. And a few years after that, the Chinese gave them the short-range ballistic missiles to launch
Yeah,
them. The Chinese, and first the Chinese and then the North Koreans. They had the what are the missiles called? The Ghaznavi,
Ghaznavi. Yeah,
and
Hataf,
M11s. I think
Ghaznavi. Yeah,
the
they're
M11s
basically
were what
M11s. Yeah,
M11s. That's right. So I think that transformed
Shaheen, Ghaznavi,
Pakistan.
Hataf,
Yes,
Shaheen, and Ghaznavi. Yeah.
Hataf Shaheen Ghaznavi. That's correct. Yeah, at the
Yeah.
time that you were in the deserts of Rajasthan trying out our Prithvi missiles, so that kind of transformed their strategic thinking, because I think they thought that they have achieved, if not gone one step ahead of India in terms of nuclear weapons. Not only the nuclear weapons, but also the delivery,
Yes.
mechanisms for the weapons, which is air. They had air, the F-16s, and now they had the M11s. And that transformed their thinking, because then they started this nuclear weapons enabled terrorism that allowed them to prosecute this campaign till about 2014, 2015, right up to the Pulwama, and then the Jabba Top attack by the Indian Air Force, where we kind of said that we are not going to be deterred anymore by their nuclear weapons. I think so. For Pakistan, I think these nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, and the combination of these two, have been largely strategic. How they're going to use it on a tactical level is something that remains to be seen. See, our requirements, like you outlined so beautifully for us, is a combination of both. While we have the strategic, we are looking at this as tactical weapons as well, in to prosecute warfighting on the plateau, for instance, or in the Indian Ocean. Those are, the new capabilities that we've developed. It's for those. But for Pakistan, I think, apart from the fact that they have strategic weapons, of course, and they've used the short-range battlefield nuclear weapons, the rockets. Apart from these, I don't see rockets for them as being weapons of daily warfighting, as in warfighting weapons.
I agree with you there. But the fact, remember, they just fired a missile just
Yes,
15 days back. So,
yes,
and they're expanding their navy alongside the fact that China is going to come and deploy. So I
yes,
feel, I mean, we have to, as the Indian establishment so far has thought of the Western Front as being against
yes,
Pakistan. With
yes,
the activities which are there in Gwadar, which are the activities which are going on in the Gulf of Eden, and the Chinese port at Djibouti, we have to now
yes,
start thinking of a composite Western Front which encompasses Pakistan and the North Arabian Sea. This is where our thinking has to change. As much as our thinking has to change about many things with the introduction of these long range vectors, our
right,
strategic thinking and our posturing has to change. The normal thing, Western Front is Pakistan only, Northern Front
yeah,
is China only.
right,
No, the Western Front, in my way of thinking, comprises uh, of the land portion of Pakistan and the maritime part till the Gulf of Eden. Beyond south of Gulf of Eden is where I think the Indian Ocean maritime region should come in, because that's
right,
tactical or operational.
yes.
With Karachi being so close, Gwadar being so close, your shipper, even your fishermen go into their waters.
Yeah, Karachi, I was just thinking of, that's literally where Indian guided missilery was proven in
Yeah,
1971, almost
one,
more than half
yeah,
a century ago.
century back.
And it was, I think, it's very interesting that when the Navy fired those missiles on those two operations, Ops Trident and Python, 4th December and 8th December, largest employment of anti-ship guided missiles in naval history. It's never been done from a ship, from one ship to hitting other ships. It's not been done before that, and it's not been done after that. This large number of missiles being fired to hit other warships and all that, and to my mind, it appeared that there was a lost opportunity here, because you had one Indian service firing a large number of guided missiles, but for some reason the other services didn't think that this was a platform that they could use. For instance, like the Air Force could have taken it up as an air launched version of a P-15. The Army could have had a ground launched version of the P-15.
I think you're right. I think you're 100%. You hit the nail on the head. That's why the need for theaterization. That's the need for
Yes,
jointness. That's the need
Yes.
for, I'm glad we've got over it with the air launch BrahMos, ship launch
Yes.
BrahMos, and I would like to see, the Pinaka. I mean, we not discuss too much about it. Let me put it. Pinaka
Yes.
today is just one which is made by the DRDO, 80 kilometers. But if you have to take
Right.
it to 200 plus kilometers, you have to fit a ramjet on it, for which
Yes.
we are working in IIT on it. Okay,
Right.
we're working on technology for all these. We are,
But
in
so
fact,
my
we are the
question
best.
is, it's very interesting. Ramjet on a Pinaka rocket round, an unguided rocket. How does that work? I mean, tell us for the
So
viewers.
it could be guided or unguided. It doesn't matter,
Right.
but that's a later day. Let's talk of the propulsion. First, this fellow has to go to that distance.
Yes.
So you can see, even this hypersonic missile is a ramjet. It's a scramjet basically.
Yes.
Scramjet is a superior form of a ramjet, right? Only thing is it is supersonic combustion of the air or supersonic compression of the air. Scram is supersonic compression ramjet. Okay, that's a scramjet.
Right.
I'll not get into the technology of it, right? But we have the technology where we can port it onto a missile, any of these Merge, the Pinaka, and all that. The day you do that, your ranges will double, triple, which gives you a tremendous capability. You can put it on a ship, you can put it on an aircraft like a BrahMos, and you put guidance on it. In any case, you have a guided Pinaka. So if you
Yes.
just change the propulsion of the guided Pinaka, right, to put a ramjet on it, then you have the capability of doubling or tripling its range, depending on many other issues. I'm just giving it back of the envelope kind of a calculation, which means that you can put it on an aircraft and use it as a mini BrahMos or something like that. You can do it in ship to shore or shore to ship, both ways, or ship to
Right.
ship also. See, the moment you have a basic capability to alter it to suit the requirements, is a matter of what you said, integrated
Right.
thinking, which we didn't do in 71. We are paying for it now. Let's do it
Yes.
now.
And also this thing, General Shankar, this the lost 1971 moment, according to me, is the fact that we should have immediately picked up the P-15 and reverse engineered it. Why is it that we are so bad at reverse engineering stuff? Is it because we are like that, that Indian school poster, that Adarsh Balak, if you remember, the good boy who never steals technology, never reverse engineers, always plays by the rules? Is that what we are?
Look, we don't. We no. We can reverse engineer. We can do import substitution. Everything we have done
Yes.
it. You look at there's this gun, 105 light field gun. Okay,
Yes.
we reverse engineered it from the British light field gun, not now. UK
Right.
light gun. When we did this reverse engineering in 84.
Right.
84, the Brits got it for trials to India. It was left here because they couldn't take it back. They couldn't get a berth on the ship and all that. It was lying in School of Artillery, Devlali. One composite team of ours went, did all the measurements, came out, and then they made that gun. And it has served us for 40 years. It's not as if we
Right.
don't know how to do it.
Right.
We know how to do reverse engineering. We know how to do import substitution. What is required is jointness in thinking. We need to have vision. We need to have clarity of thought. I mean,
Right.
look at this Dhanush and Bofors. We had the
Yes.
Bofors drawings for 30 years. We did nothing about it. It was in 2010, we dusted everything off, shook off all the dust, looked at the drawings, improved upon it, and we came out with the Dhanush. Having come
Right.
out with the Dhanush, we're not able to produce it. That's a different story.
Yes.
But we have the capability. It is, I think, what we lack is that integrated thinking and the integrated push to take it to the end post. That's the more important thing. That's why we suffer from delays and things like that.
Right. So do you see that integrated thinking, that integrated approach now in 2024, General Shankar?
Yeah, I see the change. I see the change. The fact
Right.
that there's a CDS who comes to IIT and talks, he goes to speak to young kids wherever. He's speaking to many other institutions. He's speaking to service institutions, and all he's talking is jointness and theaterization. I think it's a good thing. And late General Rawat, my good friend,
Yes.
he set the ball rolling, and I see the present CDS also taking it forward. Eventually, we should have it. If you don't have it, you will lose all your capabilities.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much, General Shankar. I mean, that's a very fascinating overview of all our missile tests over the last couple of months. You've just so beautifully strung together and given us the big picture of our capabilities, and of course, what we need to really look forward to, look out for the SWOT analysis that you've given us for our missile capabilities. And fascinating, explanation. And that's one reason that we keep coming back to you for your knowledge and your deep expertise on matters military and, of course, long-range missiles and artillery. But thank you very much, General Shankar, for joining us this evening to make sense of India's new missile breakthroughs.
Thanks a lot. It's been an honor always and a pleasure talking to you, Sandeep, right from the time when you were in India Today and now in News 9. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and let's hope for the best for the nation.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.